Welcome back to Explore with Adam.
Oh,
Today, we're going to do a deep dive into something that's, well, kind of both science fiction and conspiracy theory,
okay.
the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that's been around forever, right? It's about this World War II destroyer, the USS Eldridge,
Right?
and it's supposedly vanished into thin air.
Just poof.
Gone.
Yeah, just like that. And
So there's invisibility, and then on top of that, there's all this talk about teleportation and sailors fused to the metal of the ship and people going crazy. And I mean, where do we even start with this one?
well, the story basically starts with this guy, Carl Allen, though he went by Carlos Ellen.
Okay.
And back in the 50s, he sent all these letters to this UFO researcher named Morris K. Jessup, who had written a book called The Case for the UFO.
Huh, interesting.
And Allende claimed that he saw the Philadelphia experiment himself when he was working on a ship nearby.
So we've got like a supposed eyewitness.
Right.
But what did he actually say he saw? And why would he contact a UFO guy about a Navy thing? Well, his letters were full of all this crazy stuff about the Eldridge vanishing in a green-blue fog and then reappearing in Norfolk, Virginia.
What?
Yeah, and then going back to Philadelphia.
Wow.
And he talked about sailors being like melted into the ship's metal, others just disappearing altogether,
Oh, my God.
and a lot of the crew losing their minds.
That's wild.
But the really interesting part is that Allende also tried to tell Jessup to stop looking into Einstein's unified field theory.
Wait, Einstein's unified field theory?
No.
What does that have to do with the vanishing ship?
That's where it gets even weirder. Allende implied that the experiment had something to do with alien tech,
Okay.
and that messing around with unified field theory was dangerous.
So it's like he wanted people to know about the experiment, but also not to investigate the science behind it.
Yeah, it's a really strange mix of motivations for sure.
Very strange.
Yep.
It's like he was trying to push a very particular story.
Hmm.
But why?
Well, then things get even more complicated with this thing called the Varo Edition.
The Varo Edition.
Yeah, so Jessup gets this copy of his own book, but it's all marked up with scribbles in different colors.
Okay.
And these notes are talking about UFOs, alien tech, and hinting at the Philadelphia experiment.
Hold on. What is the Varo Edition exactly? And where'd that name come from?
So the name comes from this company called Varo Manufacturing,
Right.
and the Office of Naval Research said that's who sent them the book.
Okay.
And this annotated copy became like a key piece of evidence for people who believe in the Philadelphia experiment.
So it sounds like the Navy was actually interested in UFOs and this whole Philadelphia experiment thing?
Well, not really. Their official response was that they had no clue who sent them the book.
Huh.
But they said the notes were interesting enough that they actually reprinted it and shared it internally.
Wow. So they were interested.
Well, later on, people figured out that Allende probably created the Varo Edition himself.
Ah, so it was a fake?
Seems like it, which
Right.
makes his whole story even more confusing.
It's like we're going further down the rabbit hole with this guy. So what did the Navy officially say about the Philadelphia experiment itself?
Well, in 1996, the Office of Naval Research finally made a statement saying that the experiment never happened.
They just denied the whole thing.
Yeah, they said all the rumors were probably just people misunderstanding wartime degassing techniques.
Degassing. I've heard of that, but I don't really know
But-
what it is.
It's basically a process they used in World War II to make ships invisible to magnetic mines and torpedoes.
Okay.
They would run electrical cables around the hull of a ship to cancel out its magnetic field.
So are they saying people saw a ship being degassed and thought it was some invisibility cloak or something?
Yeah, it's possible, especially since wartime technology was super secret.
I could see that.
Hmm.
But how do they explain the Eldridge supposedly teleporting to Norfolk?
That's where the official records come in. The logs from the USS Eldridge actually put it in the Bahamas at the time the experiment was supposed to have happened.
Oh, so they're saying the ship wasn't even there. Well, that seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
Well, conspiracy theorists say that those logs could have been faked to cover up the truth.
Oh, the classic cover-up. But even if we think about that for a second, what about all those strange things that happened to the crew? Those side effects. There would be some evidence of that, right?
Well, that's the thing about the Philadelphia experiment. The whole story is based on there being no proof. There's
Yeah.
no official documents, no pictures, no physical evidence of any kind,
So it's all just stories.
basically.
Yeah.
And for people who want to believe, the lack of evidence just makes the mystery even stronger.
Because it means the government is really good at covering things up.
Exactly. And that's where the story really takes off. It becomes something much bigger than just a ship disappearing.
You're talking about the Montauk Project, right? That
Yeah.
other top secret experiment where they supposedly did time travel and all this weird stuff?
Yeah, that's right. The Montauk Project is a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
It sounds crazy. Tell me more.
Well, it was supposed to have taken place at Camp Hero on Montauk, Long Island. And they say they did all sorts of crazy experiments there, like psychic warfare and trying to control time and space.
Whoa, that's intense. So how does this connect to the Philadelphia experiment?
Well, people who believe in the Montauk Project say it was like a continuation of the research that started with the Philadelphia experiment.
Oh, wow.
Like the government figured out how to make things invisible and teleport them, and then they just kept going with even crazier experiments.
So it's like a giant conspiracy with the Philadelphia experiment as the starting point.
Exactly. And as the story of the Philadelphia experiment got around, it caught the attention of writers, filmmakers, and all sorts of conspiracy theorists.
Oh, yeah.
Then in 1984, a movie about the Philadelphia experiment came out.
Oh, I remember that one. It was a classic.
Right. And that movie made the story even more popular and introduced it to a whole new audience.
But how much of the movie was based on real stuff and how much was made up?
That's where things get even more blurry. The movie definitely took some creative liberties with the story, but it also solidified the image of the Philadelphia experiment in everyone's minds. It became like the go-to story for anyone interested in conspiracy theories and government secrets.
And that's when we get Al Bielek coming onto the scene in 1988, right? He said he was actually on board the Eldridge during the experiment.
That's right. And his story just added another layer of mystery to the whole thing.
Did people believe him?
It was a mixed bag. Some people thought his story proved that the Philadelphia experiment was real,
Yeah.
but other people didn't buy it. They pointed out that his story had some holes in it and that he only came forward after the movie came out.
That timing is kind of suspicious.
Mm.
It makes you wonder if the movie influenced his memories in some way.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how powerful stories can be and how they can shape our understanding of things, especially when we're talking about events that are shrouded in mystery.
This is already so much more complicated and interesting than I thought. We've gone from a disappearing ship to government cover-ups, alien tech, time travel, and the power of stories. I can't wait to see where we go from here. It's amazing how this story just keeps getting bigger. It started with a ship vanishing, and now we're talking about government conspiracies and aliens and time travel. It's crazy.
It really is. It's like we're peeling back layers of an onion, and every layer is even stranger than the last.
You mentioned that the Navy tried to explain the whole thing away with degassing. But how does that even work? Could that really make a ship look invisible?
Well, degassing is about wrapping these electrical cables around the ship's hull,
Okay.
and then they run a strong electrical current through them.
Right.
And that creates a magnetic field that cancels out the ship's own magnetism. So it's not really about making the ship disappear visually.
Oh, so you can still see it.
Right. It's about making it invisible to magnetic sensors, like the ones they use for mines and torpedoes.
Okay, so it's invisible to radar.
Not radar, but to those specific magnetic sensors.
Got it. I guess someone who didn't understand the tech could have misinterpreted that, right?
Yeah,
Especially during a war when everything was top secret.
exactly. Imagine seeing a ship just disappear off a radar screen.
Yeah.
If you didn't know about DDoSing, you might think something really crazy was going on.
Yeah, for sure. And there were so many rumors and crazy stories going around during the war.
Right. The Philadelphia experiment is like a perfect example of how those kinds of fears and anxieties can get mixed up with real science.
Speaking of anxieties, you mentioned the Montauk Project before and how it's supposedly connected to the Philadelphia experiment. Didn't that project involve even crazier stuff like time travel and psychic research?
Yeah, the Montauk Project is where things get really wild. It's like the government took the ideas from the Philadelphia experiment and just ran with them into the paranormal.
So they were doing experiments on ESP and trying to control time.
That's what they say. They talk about psychic warfare and trying to manipulate the fabric of space-time.
That's insane. And you said something about aliens being involved too. What's the connection there?
Well, according to the Montauk Project stories, the government realized that the technology they used in the Philadelphia experiment had some side effects, like opening portals to other dimensions,
Whoa.
or even attracting aliens. Some people say that the Montauk Project was all about trying to communicate with these aliens, or even use their technology as weapons.
So basically, the Philadelphia experiment became like a magnet for every conspiracy theory out there.
Exactly. It's like a blank canvas where people can project their own fears and beliefs about government secrets and the unknown.
It's also interesting how the story has changed over time. Like we talked about the movie from the 80s and Al Bielek's story. Do you think those things actually changed what people believed about the Philadelphia experiment?
It's hard to say for sure. It's like the chicken and the egg thing.
Mm,
Did the movie inspire Bielek's memories, or did his memories inspire the movie?
right.
But it's definitely true that both the movie and Bielek's story helped shape how people think about the Philadelphia experiment.
It really shows how powerful stories can be and how easy it is for them to be influenced by other things. It makes you wonder how much of history is real and how much is just made up.
That's a good point. The Philadelphia experiment is a good reminder to always be careful about where you get your information and to question everything.
So even though most people think the Philadelphia experiment is a hoax, you're saying there are still good reasons to talk about it and think about what it means.
Absolutely. The story has become so much a part of our culture that it's worth exploring, even if it's not true.
It raises questions about what's real and what's not, and about the power of belief and the limits of what we know. It's pretty deep stuff.
It is. The Philadelphia experiment is more than just a story. It's a reflection of who we are and what we're afraid of and what we hope for.
I have to admit, I'm starting to see why people are so drawn to this story. Even if I'm not sure if I believe it, there's something about the mystery and the intrigue that's just fascinating. It's funny, we've been talking about this Philadelphia experiment for a while now, going over all the different theories, and we still don't really know what happened.
And that's kind of what keeps people interested. The fact that there's no real proof, just stories, means that people can choose to believe it or not. It becomes a way for people to show their own views about science, government, and what's real and what's not.
It's like the story is more important than the actual event itself. It's become more like a myth or a legend,
Exactly. It's a modern-day legend that people keep telling and changing with each retelling. And like any good legend, it says something about what we all think and feel deep down.
like wanting something more than everyday life, wanting to believe in the impossible. We love stories about secret government stuff and crazy technology because they make us feel like anything is possible.
Right. And the Philadelphia experiment has all of that. It's got science fiction, conspiracy theories, and a wartime setting. It makes you think that maybe there's a world where the rules of reality don't apply and the government is hiding incredible secrets.
It also plays into our distrust of the government. The idea that they could be doing dangerous experiments and keeping it all secret is a big part of a lot of conspiracy theories.
And those theories often come from real events. Governments have done secret things, hidden information, and experimented with technology that had bad consequences. So it makes sense that people might believe something like the Philadelphia experiment could happen.
Especially now when we're overwhelmed with so much information, and a lot of it is fake or contradictory.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like everyone's lying to us and the truth is hidden.
And stories like this make people feel like they have some control. They can look beyond the official story and find the hidden truth that's being kept from them.
So even though the Philadelphia experiment probably didn't happen the way people say it did, the story is still important. It makes us think about what we believe, question what we're told, and consider that there might be more to reality than we think.
It also shows how powerful stories are and how they can change how we see the world. The Philadelphia experiment, whether it's true or not, has become part of our culture and has influenced how we think about science, the government, and what we can know.
And we've seen how the story keeps changing over time, adding new details and ideas as people retell it. It's become like a living myth, showing how much we love mystery and trying to understand the unknown.
So the main thing we can take away from all of this is that the Philadelphia experiment, real or not, is a reflection of us. It shows our hopes, our fears, and our desire to believe in something amazing.
It challenges us to think for ourselves, question what we believe, and be open to the idea that we don't know everything about the world and how it works.
And maybe that's the most important lesson. We may never find out the truth about the Philadelphia experiment, but it's the search for the truth, exploring the unknown, and trying to understand the mysteries of the universe that makes life interesting.
Well said. And to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring, do your own research, and decide for yourselves what you think about the Philadelphia experiment. It's a story that belongs to all of us, a story that changes with every generation. Keep searching, keep asking questions, and keep talking about it. Until next time, keep exploring.